you won't get the means to live. So by you having a job, your job is to survive. In Luganda, people call it akarimi. People in this working class, they call work or job akarimi. They don't even call it job anymore. Akarimi is so precious because if it leaves, so that is the working class. The working class usually earn between 8,000 and 15,000. They earn and live on 8,000 to 15,000 per day.
Those are $2. $2 to $3.
15,000, 8,000 to 15,000 per day. That means that let's do the math right, because if you are working, if for example earning 30,000 a day, you may think you are okay. But remember, if you get a spouse who is not working, and then you divide by 2, if you get a child, and you may even drop further to the wretched. If you get a child, twins. These are people. Sometimes, some years back, I remember a man who ran from Masaka. He was found in Natete 2 years after, when his wife gave birth to twins. The man dropped from working class to the wretched, and he had to abandon the what? The family, because he couldn't take care of what? Of 3 individuals. At first he had one, the wife. Now he was taking care of 3, and there are 4 in the household. And you find reasons why you left meat, not having meat, but then the actual reason is the wallet. So this class also has some people, but the working class mingles with the 2 classes below, the class below and the class above. This working class mingles with the poor. There are some poor who are working, but because they are getting so little money and their jobs are so unpredictable, they are among the poor. Then the working class also mingles with the middle class. They are members of the middle class in income and expenditure, but when it comes to lifestyles and security of work, of sources of income, they are working class. Because even if you're earning 40 millions a month, even if you're earning 20 millions a month, even if you are in Uganda and you are a member of parliament, you're earning 30 millions a month. But then your livelihood is dependent on that job.
You are working
class. Because when that job ceases,
you are gone.
You are gone.
Which it usually does.
It does. I remember in lockdown, there are some members of the so-called middle class who were in the entertainment industry before the lockdown, and these members, these were musicians and actors, and they are earning millions every month from gigs and from entertainment. Now, in lockdown, there was no entertainment. I remember on one occasion, I was seated to someone who was in an organization which helps out, which brings together these people. And there are 2 nationally renowned musicians who called this lady, and one of them was asking for 100,000 Ugandan shillings to help them. 50,000 for helping their family for that week, and 50,000 for transport from wherever they were back to Kampala. 100,000, and this was the member of the middle class before the what?
The so-called stars.
The stars. Our celebrities.
Member of the middle class.
The so-called
presumed
middle class. That's what I'm saying. The pseudo middle class. Actually, in the middle class, there's what they call the floating middle class.
Floating.
Yeah, we're going to talk about it later. But these are people who fall we call the floating middle class. We'll talk about it after the working class. So now, these people, then there's another gentleman, he's also a musician. This musician has been singing since I first heard of his music in the 1980s, and he's still rocking. This gentleman was in hospital at that time, and the hospital bill was 800,000 Ugandan shillings. This gentleman had the health center had detained him because he couldn't meet the bills. So this gentleman called this other lady also, and he wanted help. And the gentleman was saying that I can't even feed my family. I don't have soap. Lots of members of the middle class, the pseudo middle class, or the floating middle class are working class actually. Because however much money you're earning now, if you don't control the means of production, if you're not certain, even if you control the means of production, but if any economic shock can disrupt your your living, and you become a survivor, then you are a member of the working class.
Or if the means of production are directly attached to your direct and personal involvement. Yeah. Because some means of production, yes, you're right. Some means of production are directly attached to your involvement. If you are not healthy enough to work, or if conditions don't force you out of work, then you won't. Even if you control them, but if your health makes it unable for you to work, or if other factors stop you from working, like COVID did, many of us, and you stop earning, then we are crossing another class, middle class. You are a member of the working class, but now we call you the floating middle class. Floating middle class, you're floating because anything, the wind can blow you anywhere. Yeah. Actually, the good thing about the working class and floating middle class is that for them there is some easier help, some advice you can be offered, that whenever you are a member of the middle class, or if you are in the floating middle class, you should make it a point that when you earn, try to save a little of what you are earning and invest it. Save for investment.
And then when you are saving, don't save for over a year. Whenever you save for over a year, saving for over a year means that you are losing. There's what we call time value of money. The money you are saving is losing value. Whenever you want to invest, and then you have to invest, you have to save for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years for you to get enough capital to make a small investment. Then that means that you're losing the value which you are saving. You're going to lose about 10% of what you are saving. And 2, whatever you are saving for may not be marketable 5 years from now, when you raise the money. You may save for, there may be business for a certain type of fashion, certain type of clothing now. Or sanitizers in COVID. By the time you get money for sanitizers,
COVID is gone.
Yeah. So there are issues with saving. So actually, the best way for anyone to get out of this trap is to access some form of credit, if possible. Some form of credit, if possible, and add it to your little savings. Then you start up something. But if you just keep from hand to mouth, then you are still floating. You're a floating member of the middle class, and any economic shock is going to drive you back to the poor.
The funny thing with creditors is also the creditors look at how credit worthy you are.
Yeah. Actually, yeah, there are different types of credit. Maybe you go to angel creditors, or you go to. I remember myself when I was starting out in the credit business, I couldn't borrow money from the banks. Actually, there's a time when I needed money to make an investment. After university, my mother bought me a plot at 1 million Uganda shillings. I had to sell that plot to raise money. I sold it at 1.5 million to get capital because I couldn't get credit from anyone. Then at a later stage in my life, when I wanted to build my first property, my first house, I couldn't get money from the bank. What I did, I had to borrow money from an angel credit, I would call. I had to borrow from a relative.
In other words, in economics and development, borrowing is also a social class.
Social clear. Not everyone can borrow. By the way.
Borrowing is also a social class. Not everyone can just wake up and go to the bank and they give them money.
No, you must have collateral.
Not the wretched,
which is double.
The wretched cannot even borrow from the poor because the poor cannot trust the wretched.
Even the poor can't borrow.
So the poor also cannot borrow because they don't even have that.
The poor can't borrow.
So borrowing is also social class.
Social class. The working class can try to borrow, but when you're borrowing, when you're in the working class and you're borrowing, you must have enough collateral.
Yeah.
If you don't have enough security, you must go to you must borrow from relatives and friends who don't trust you, and your friendship is at stake. If you lend them money.
Banka zibabanja gwe nga waliwo akubanja ekibbo kya muwogo totwasamira.
Then obulamu nabwo si bwangu. Because even when you are borrowing, collateral teko kubanga akubisaamu omuwendo.
That is the
thrice.
Social class.
At the worst case scenario, twice at least.
In essence, oteeka okuba nga olina ssente ze weewola.
People should not be arrested because they have failed to pay. People should be arrested because they are borrowing things they can't afford to borrow.
So that is the floating class. That's your floating middle class. That's the floating middle class. Floating middle class is that working class which earns enough money to live their good life, but then that they don't control the means of production, or even if they control the means of production, whatever they are involved in, whatever their income source is dependent on their good health and on the good environment, on the good political environment, the good weather, anything bad happens, any economic shock happens, they are gone.
Those are who?
Floating middle class.
The floating middle class.
They are living well. They may be even driving. They may be earning 10 million shillings a month. But they are.
But is that living well? When you are a floating middle class.
They are floating.
Floating. You are living well.
Yeah, floating. Yeah, when there's a lady who sang a song. The
floating is say yeah.
The god of the mountains and the god of the valleys. Even when they're on the mountains, that's when they're living well. They're driving, they're eating well, they're going for spa, they're going for holidays every month. When things are well. When they're in the valleys and they're calling on that god of the valleys, these are people. If there's a possibility for you to economically go to the valley, then you are floating. So that floating class.
Anti floating era yakumazzi sola floatingira mu mpewo. Oteeka okuba n'amaanyi agakuteeka mu mpewo.
Then there is what you call the other subclass is what you call the lower middle class. Yeah, there's a lower middle class. The lower middle class is made of people who can meet all their basic needs. They can meet their wants.
Or they can meet some wants.
No, they can meet wants and some of their dreams. But then, just hear this very well, and over 50% of their income, which is helping them meet this, over 50% is from passive sources. Passive sources are sources of income whereby even in your grave, that source will be making income. You don't
That's
have to
lower middle.
Lower middle class. With 50% of your income is coming from passive sources, and then that your total income can meet your basic needs, you can meet your wants, and you can meet some of your dreams. Not all of your dreams, but some of your dreams. Then you are in the lower middle class. That is the lower middle class. That means that you have some investments which don't need your presence, which don't need your involvement, which don't need your even your life, your existence, to bring in income or money. And those investments have reached a level of over 50%. That means that if you spend 4 million every month, you and your family, 2.1 million at least are coming. That 2.5 million is coming from passive sources. The most passive sources we know is real estate mainly, and some shares, and some government bonds, and some government securities, yeah, like treasury bills. Not all governments have secure. Not all governments in the world have safe and secure securities like treasury bills and bonds. Some governments, like, remember Sri Lanka, what happened to Sri Lanka recently? Yeah. We've had governments in Africa, Congo, Kinshasa, Zimbabwe. There's a time when Zimbabwean Zimbabwean treasury bills and bonds were worth almost nothing. So there are certain governments whose securities are questionable. You can't invest there and say that my investment is safe. It's a passive investment. Even companies, when you're buying shares in companies as a safe investment, a passive source of income, there are certain companies which you can't be very certain whether it's going to be here in 5 or 10 years time. So you should do your homework very well. Like in Uganda, you should know that if I'm investing in New Vision, for example, I'm certain New Vision's track record guarantees me that New Vision will be here in 20 years. My shares will be safe. Or if I'm buying shares in DFCU or ABSA Bank, that my shares will be growing and will be safe
for the next 20 years.
Yeah. And it takes a lot of homework, because in Uganda in the past we've seen companies which were prominent and which were almost solid,
and they flew through the window.
Yeah. Greenland Bank, Rain Bank,
Worried
at least was sold, so the shares were passed on to another company. But there are some people who lost money, like Greenland Bank. Many people lost their shareholding. Many people who had invested, they lost their money. It was the biggest local commercial bank in Uganda at that time. So you should, if you want to be in the lower middle class, try to make investments which are sure of returning, of being in existence, and of returning an income and returning a profit for a very, very long time, even without your supervision. That's when you're in the middle class.
Without my supervision.
Yeah. Actually, many people have become rich by using this principle of investing in passive income. Because as I'm going to see that you can only be rich if you have enough passive income. We want to get to them. So the only certainty of you being well off in life, actually, and being in the right class, is for you to increase your passive income. That is for you to become financially independent. So as we move to the upper middle class, the upper middle class now, as compared to the lower middle class, the upper middle class is that class which can meet their basic needs. They can meet all their wants, and they can meet their dreams up to a level of 90% of their dreams. And they're using 90% of their income is passive. Over 90% of their income is passive. Class. Dreams. When I'm talking about dreams, I'm talking about things you envision when you are young. If Lila wanted to fly to Bahamas every year,
That's good.
if you can do it now, then you are in the upper middle class. If you wanted to, I have a friend last year. She got a visa. She was going to the Maldives to work, and I found her crying. So Francis, I can't go to Maldives. I'm going to spend many work. I told her at least we are going to rub shoulders with the rich. The Maldives is one of the top spots in the world for tourism. for the holidays. I told her, you go there and learn from the rich whom you'll be serving. She's a member of the poor. She's in the poor. Now she's going to work in the Maldives, and she was very disheartened because she's going to do the new work. She's going to work in a restaurant, washing dishes and all that. I told her, you go and work, but the best thing you can pick from it is the attitude of the rich. Take a few tips from them, if they will be helpful enough, and make enough capital to come and invest back in Uganda to create passive income for yourself. So actually, we had a sit down with Uganda and we made a plan that for every amount of money she will be making, a percentage will be coming back to Uganda for her to invest in real estate. So that she comes back to Uganda a member. She's going to live as one of God's bits of wood, and she's returning as a member of the
working class,
of the middle class. She can lower middle class. She can come back as a lower middle class.
That's good.
Which comes back with enough assets, she can be a member of the middle class. With 50% of her income coming from passive. Yeah. So many
passive kintu ekikuleetera ssente nga tokyetabyemu naye nga kikuleetera ssente. Bw'oba osobola okuzimba ebintu bwe bityo mu bulamu bwo osenvudde kati ogenze ku mutendera ogwo, naye bwe kiba nga ssente olina nnyingi ne woba ne miliyoni 10 oba kawumbi okola buli lunaku naye ng'olina beerawo okyalimu eri kiraasi eya wansi.
Gamba bugambi
abantu baagala ekyo bakitegeere
nti oli ku njegooyego za kudda mu bunkuseere.
Kamulayo okutiisatiisa bantu oli wali wamma.
Let me give you an example. I have a client. Yes. Let me give you an example. I have a client. This client of mine was 1 year ago. This client of mine came to me 2 years ago. Actually, I met them 2 years ago. Become my clients. I'm their financial advisor. So they came to me. This gentleman was earning 3 times the amount of money I earn every month. His income is 3 times mine. So he came to me and was telling me that he thinks I'm very laid back and I should do something about my income levels and my economic life at my age. 2 years after, last month we met, and then he still earns 3 times the amount of money I earn. But this time he said that after the interaction with me for over the 2 years, he's discovered that he's a member of the working class, and I'm the member of at least I'm in the
middle class somewhere.
I'm in the middle class somewhere. I'm moving from the lower middle class to the upper middle class, despite our income differences. This gentleman, all his money comes from Iriba. I'm going to call it Iriba. He doesn't even have capital.
It is too much money.
He gets a lot of money, but he does not have capital to invest in his products. What he does with the product, he gets a seller of the product and he gets a buyer, and he takes the difference. So I was telling him that you should even get capital, even to start with. You need to raise your capital so that you become a member of the middle class. If you want to get to the middle class is not about money. I told him, if you get sick, there's a time this gentleman got sick.
And he can't be there.
And he thought he was going to die at one point. It was a major, it had to do with his heart.
It's a scary thought, huh?
Now, this man, I sat with him and we said, Francis, I don't know whether if I'm to die now, how is my wife going to live? How are my kids? I don't have a home. I don't have a passive source of income. So, gentlemen and ladies, it's very, very important and vital for all of us to drive into the middle class. Why? Because it gives you certainty. If it's not for you, at least for the people you look after, your tenants and your family, it gives you peace of mind. When you know that even if I'm asleep, even if there's another COVID lockdown, you can survive without working. That's the certainty we want. Then, when you move to the upper class, what we call the upper class is are people who live their heaven on the earth. Your imaginations of heaven, things which will be your dreams.
Is that upper middle class or just another one?
No, that's upper class.
Upper class.
Upper class. The upper class is made of what we call It's made of two types of people. It's made of the rich and the wealthy. We are talking about the rich. It's made of they're called the affluent. But then there are two classes, subclasses. What we call the rich and the wealthy. The rich. Now, the rich are the young siblings to the younger siblings to the wealthy. The rich usually, the rich can live their dreams with 100% of passive income. They can live their dreams with 100% of passive income, but there's a small but compared to the wealthy. The rich, when they have used up all their income can only serve one generation ahead.
The rich.
The rich are people like if for example, if I were rich, if I were rich, if I'm to die and my wife dies, the wealth I've left behind can only serve my children, and it can't help my grandchildren. And two, another preference of the rich compared to the wealthy is that many times the rich, their wealth, most of their wealth is into living their lifestyle and not investment. You get me? More than 50% of the net assets or of the wealth of the rich is spent on their lifestyles or their dreams. It's spent on going for holidays, on fancy cars, on clothes, on health lifestyles and all that. The rich, more than 50% of the rich. Now, the wealthy are people. They live. They have a lot of their passive income. They only need 10% of their passive income to finance their dreams, their lifestyles.
The wealthy.
Only 10%. And then they can invest back the 90%, or they invest back the 90%, or they invest back the 90%, or they give it to charity. They usually give a I have my Basoga friends, they call them Ababede. Omudingu. What about Omudingu? They call Ababede and Abadingu. I don't know, they're too huge.
Mubede is too huge.
Too huge, yeah?
Omudingu has an element of worship in it, I think.
Hey, that's
a
so these are dealing with the wealthy. You only use 10% of your wealth. Okay? 10% of your wealth. I know a few individuals in Uganda who are, you also met some individuals in Uganda who, there is a gentleman there's a gentleman I know. Last year, he was driving a 600 million car, Mercedes-Benz wagon. He bought it at 600 million during lockdown.
During lockdown, a
2020 model at 600 million. $600 million. Mercedes-Benz wagon, and that is his vehicle. And his wife also has a vehicle worth 300 million.
So that's about $1 billion.
$1 billion in their vehicles. So last month, this gentleman's Mercedes-Benz wagon had a mechanical problem, and this gentleman he ordered a part for this Mercedes-Benz. When he ordered a part, in the meantime, he bought an 80 million vehicle as he's waiting for the other parts to happen. That is wealthy. And if you can afford to buy if you can afford to buy a 600 million, if you can afford to buy a 600 million vehicle for yourself and a 300 million vehicle for your wife, and this gentleman has kids, and he has bought on birthday gifts for the kids are vehicles. And this guy doesn't buy second-hand vehicles from bonds in Uganda.
Those are actually not vehicles to him.
He buys brand new
cars
vehicles
from factory.
Yeah. Zero mileage.
Birthday vehicles.
Yetagula ntambula. Agula motoka.
And you can afford to buy another brand new at 80 million as you're waiting for the spare part for your Mercedes Benz. So that is what we call being wealthy, because he does not feel the impact. Just like you can get money to buy not even to buy the border.
Oyo Francis. Oyayinza okumpa omulimu njozenge ekkubo erigenda ewuwe nga situuka ku luggi
kyebaganira ddala ekyo
they only allowed to be near the poor. You're not around. You talk about the rich.
But do you see what it means when some man says you can't marry my daughter really?
And
That's what they're talking about. Really.
So that is the wealthy. Now, as I'm concluding, the class which is very vital for any economy. The class which is very vital for any economy to grow is what we call the middle class. That's why these African countries, even Uganda inclusive, we've been singing for years about middle income status.
It's the bearing.
Because the middle income status is the class which has people who are fighting tooth and nail to get to the upper class.
And in this fighting, they pay a lot of taxes.
They pay a lot of taxes. They do a lot of investments. These are people who spend the most. The upper class doesn't spend a lot. Why? Because they already spent.
What?
The upper class
they don't spend.
Does not spend as much as the middle class because they've already spent
600 million against.
He does that
but how many?
Once a year.
The upper class. The upper class is even percentage-wise. The upper class is made of 0.01% of the
si myaka etaano wagudde emotoka ya miliyoni 600 ba middle class baguze Toyota akawumbi kamu.
The middle class is big.
Akawumbi kamu sika sente emotoka namba yazo.
Uganda's wealthy don't make even 10,000. They don't even make 1,000. But Uganda's middle class is 12 million. Uganda's middle class is made of 12 million people.
Uganda in a middle class.
But the floating. We have a floating in there. But the middle class, those who are surviving, we are praying that. Yeah. But then the good thing about the middle class is that the middle class is made of people whose brains are working day and night so that they escape. The middle class hates the middle class. The middle class. No, the middle class hates being in the middle class. They want to go to the upper class. Yeah. And they don't. They spend and they want and they like good things. So they are buying.
We also created.
They are buying. They have a lot of purchase. They like buying a lot. These are people who sustain supermarkets, who sustain bonds, who sustain because they buy second-hand cars every after 2 years, 1 year, 2 years.
And they kukanika.
And they're repairing all the time. They are buying clothes, they are buying new clothes. They're the ones who develop economy. Economic development spurs on the middle class.
They are the ones who have built China's economy and industry.
The middle, because they have purchasing power and they want to purchase and they over-invest. Because the middle class has people who want to escape the middle class to the upper class.
They over-invest and over-fail.
Yeah, they over-fail.
Kubanga singa babadde tebagwa upper class yet teyali badde mu 0.00 something.
But it's very hard to
mwebani olidde ku kyenca.
So, ladies and gentlemen, yes. Our life here on earth, we're on earth to live good lives, and to live our dreams, and everyone dreams. Even the poor dream. Even the wretched of the earth, however much they are defeated, they dream. And in order for us to move from one class to another, up to the upper class, the best class you can ever live is the upper class. And another good class you can live is the upper middle class. So, all of us should strive, worst case scenario, to reach the upper middle class, whereby 90% of our dreams, wants, and needs are serviced by passive income. The way to move from one class to another will be another session, another talk. How you can move from one class to another. And I pray God helps us that we envisage it and we don't religionize it. Some people religionize poverty.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, and religionize
Blessed are the poor.
The theologian will explain.
God bless you until we next time.
Amen.